Good morning. Thank you for joining us today. We're so excited to present the world premiere of Treasure Island. When you come down to see the production, you will experience Treasure Island in this manifestation for the very first time. And we've got actors and the creative team here with us today to talk about what it means to create a brand new musical for the stage. Before I bring out our creative team, let's take a moment. Angel Galloway and Ashley Leopoulos are our entire marketing department at the Rep. So we got the entire department here. They do such a great job putting together promotional information. You know, it's not just enough to come down to the theater and see a play. We want our audience to be able to experience what we call surround events or ancillary experiences that help you and enrich the theater-going experience for you. So this is one of the videos that they've put together. Let's take a look at that.
I am Brett Smock, and I am one of the book writers and the director of the project.
I am Corinne Aquilina, and I am the composer, lyricist, and musical director of the show.
My name is Carla Vitale, and I am co-book writer of Treasure Island, a new musical.
I think our score not only underscores but highlights every emotion that this group of people endures throughout the journey.
I was blown away by the layers in this story.
The emotion of the people inside is out there, not just the adventure musically, but from the inside out, there's a message.
We have certainly stayed close to the storyline and reverent to Stevenson's writings. But we have taken liberties that have helped push this into today's vernacular for audiences to be able to relate to and to feel it in a more visceral, contemporary, alive way.
Treasure Island is certainly a timeless, coming-of-age story. We get to see a young boy sort of navigate his way in this adventure, and he really faces a great deal of moral conflict. He faces broken loyalties among who he thinks are his friends. And he's faced with many important decisions that really change him and the people around him forever. And how is that not a great story to look at?
It's about a boy facing larger than life odds, and in the middle of something he didn't expect in overwhelming circumstances. I think we can all relate to that. And I think this story speaks to all of us in terms of our moral center and how far we might step from that and what we might do in the face of temptation.
I certainly think the people will come sing this. I think little boys will come and sing "Two Gentlemen of Fortune," just like that. And I think young girls will come out. We've always thought of this. We've been told this a few times, that this is the Wicked for boys. And the young boy really is quite a hero. Makes some big mistakes, don't we all? But I think this is kind of like the adventure of, people have called this the Wicked for boys, the backstory of not just the adventure, but how he feels as he took the bridge to adulthood.
Well, I think everyone does have an emotional reaction to music, and I think that Corinne has been masterful at eliciting a sense of adventure, or a sense of grandeur, a sense of the sea, a sense of poignancy between a mother and son.
Treasure Island is synonymous with adventure and a sense of daring and risk and high stakes, adventure on the high seas. The focus is on a young boy. I think we can all root for him. We feel that all of those things stay intact. We maintain all of those things. We put the boy even more at the forefront. We make his stakes even more overwhelming. And even though I think we address the concept of what price is paid along the way, we keep that suspense, we keep that adventure, we keep this a non-stop roller coaster that the audience will hopefully be completely compelled by.
you a little flavor of the music, because what you were hearing as underscoring was the original compositions that you'll hear when you come down and see the production. But right now, let's introduce our panel, our creative team. Come on out, guys. Richard, let's start and let's ask each of our panelists to introduce themselves. Let us know how you're attached to the project and where you're from.
I'm Richard Watson, originally from Wilmington, North Carolina, and brought on to play the role of Long John Silver.
Hello, my name is Logan Rowland. I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I play Jim Hawkins in the show.
Hi, I'm Carla Vitale, and I'm a co-book for Treasure Island.
I am Corinne Aquilina. I wrote the music and the lyrics, and I'm the musical director for the show.
Brett Smock, co-author, director of the project.
Welcome. Thank you all for joining us today. We'll do some, I'll lead off with some questions for our guests and then also give you the opportunity to ask questions. I'm going to start with Brett. This is an iconic book. We learned in our conversation with the audience last night that in the 19th century it was the most translated book of all. It is a book that many of us know the story. As the creator, as the originator of the project, what motivated you, what inspired you to want to bring Treasure Island to the stage?
When we were first approached with the project, I had preconceived notions, as I think we've learned many people do coming to the title. I had preconceived notions of what this was. I was not entirely familiar with it. I assumed it was a lot of swashbuckling and sort of the eye patch story that was transcendent through time. And I wasn't really all that attracted to the idea of the project. And it wasn't until I sat down and actually reread it and focused my attention on what the stakes were and what the takeaway was that I began to really find, for me, what spoke to me was that this was a story about a young boy facing extreme odds and how in the face of greed that child and the rest of the adults behaved, and what the timeless treasure, what the gain, the fortune, the money, however you want to put the end game into tangible reality, whatever that is, what will people do for it? And that is when I began to see the human elements rise to the surface and some of the stereotypical trappings fall to the side.
And talk to us, is this something that you guys put together a couple of weeks ago?
Yes, we've only been working on it a couple days. It's very easy to do, trust me, anyone can do it. We began the project in 2006. We did a very small reading of it in 2007 where we sort of just put the ideas out there to see what we thought of them. We spent 2 years then shutting down and going back to work where we gather and work on this piece. Finally, in 2010, we felt that we had something we wanted to begin to put on people. We got together a group of actors, friends of ours in New York. We sat around a table, we read it. We went back and did some more work, and then in 2010 and 11, we did a series of backers auditions in New York where we presented the material in a reading format, people at music stands, and we had a lot of theater industry come and see it over the course of 3 different readings over the course of a year. Mike McCurdy came to the first one, and Bob came to the last one, the third one that we did, and we have spent the last, I would say, 14 months in development and preparation.
Let me go to Carla, who's the co-author of the book, and ask about, again, getting back to the genesis of the project. It's an epic book, epic in scope, dozens and dozens of characters. It would seem, and it has been turned into film in several fairly famous instances, and it has been turned into a play before. As you came on board with the project, where do you start creating the book? What are you looking for? What are the themes, of the many themes that emerge from this book, what are the themes that you guys were looking to draw out into your story?
Well, we really did start with a basic retelling of the story. We did have to I can't say this word, synthesize the very complicated plot, the scores of characters that Stevenson did create. There are many huge places that the story takes place: in the jungle, on the Atlantic Ocean, in Bristol, England. And so we really needed to take a look at the story and put it through a specific lens and identify, as Bob said, the themes of the story. And certainly, as Brett indicated, that concept of greed and what people will do to the decisions they make and the consequences that they accept, that come upon them. And some of them are very bad choices that some of the pirates make. And we realized that Jim, our young character here, has to make some very difficult moral choices. And the weight of that on his shoulders is very interesting. And so we really looked at the character of Jim Hawkins and another young pirate character as they went towards the treasure, towards that goal. They made different decisions and suffered very separate, different consequences. We also really looked at the lens of duality, the character, how we are all have duality in our lives and our personalities, and very specifically the very famous, iconic Long John Silver. And Robert Louis Stevenson does write in general about duality of characters. Certainly Jekyll and Hyde is one of the most famous, and Long John Silver also.
And now let's talk about the music, because this is a musical, and it was conceived as a musical. With Carla and Corinne both, how do you determine what's music, what's song, what's dialogue, and which comes first, the tunes or the lyrics? And how do you start creating a musical?
Well, I think the three of us together look at the words and look at what the story says. Some things are better said in song, and I always come up with the idea of the emotion of a person. If there's an evil person in the song, you find out maybe why did he do that, or the tempo of the song, or the darkness, or the major or the minor feel. The adventure is told to me in the music, supporting the flow of the story. I do think that as the three of us got together, there were many times where Carla and Brett would say, "We want you to do this in song." Or I would say, "The mother's here, there's an emotion to a mom, can she have a song? Can we find something for her?" And we did. So I think part of my concept musically was to further the adventure, to express the emotion. If it's a quirky character, it's a quirky melody. If it's something very serious, it is said. When the boy has something to say, it really, in music, it tells from the inside out why this is happening, or what's in the back of his mind. His parents, whether they're nagging him, or whether he's remembering the morals they gave him. So I do think it took three of us to all decide. And there were times I wanted a song, and it didn't further the story, so we would take them out. There's a whole trunk full. But it's a three-person collaboration on where a song would be.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point, because many times we thought something was going to be best served by dialogue, and then as we were going through the scene, realizing, no, maybe it needs to be musicalized. Go ahead.
We just picking that up, one of the things that I remember in probably December of 2006, reading the novel again and again, and one of the things that kept hitting me, for those of you who know the novel, is everyone in here relatively familiar with the novel? Okay. One of the things that I was very struck by, and I wasn't sure why, was the Israel Hands Jim scene, and I was very taken with it, and I was very drawn to it. And there are great religious overtones to that scene, and I knew that this would be an interesting musical moment, and yet it was awfully dark and awfully tense, and we were trying to figure out how it could not just be spoken word. We sat around, we had conversations about what it meant for Israel to look into the barrel of a gun and face his destiny head on with no sense of remorse and regret, and what it meant for the boy to kill for the first time, and thereby, which symbolically represents the loss of innocence, permanent loss of innocence. And I remember very distinctly us sitting around for hours one day talking about this scene over and over, and Corinne said, "Let me take it away and let me find this song for Israel." And it wasn't that long. It was a song that was written in a relatively short amount of time. Came back, and it has stayed. Now what's interesting is, It was written for Israel in 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and maybe the tiny bit of 12. And what we realized was, and this is common of the process, you assign these developmental moments, these investment moments for the audience to characters that you believe in, you want to bring to the forefront, and you find out throughout the course of your development that they're somewhat irrelevant to the audience. We had a character, we had this incredible song for the character, but we had no structure for the character. We hadn't built him with any sense of purpose, and so the audience was going to watch him sing this song, stop the show for this guy to sing. We knew we had a problem on our hands, and after some pretty intensive conversations, that song switched to Silver, and then it switched again as a duet between Silver and Jim, which is in its current form, how it exists.
One thing I find very interesting about this, having read it many, many years ago, I find it so contemporary or so timeless because people think about pirates, but yet this book has so many religious and spiritual overtones to it. There's a pirate, a young pirate, who carries a Bible with him at all times. And so there are a couple of numbers where when they refer in dialogue to the Bible, where I just think it becomes a spiritual, emotional, and a message that they need to be said. You'll hear two songs in the musical which are related to the Bible. And these pirates, who people think are evil and wicked and greedy and whatever, they still have a conscience, morals, however they act on them isn't the point. The point is there's something inside, and it came from a spiritual background. And I think those songs, those are one place where song meant more than just reading the Bible. It hit them. I think it hits an audience more by hearing the music to it. So those are a couple of the reasons or places where music is very important, I feel, to get the story across.
Let me, and it's interesting, you know, we've been in preview since Tuesday night, and they're talking about how the show continues to morph and evolve. There was a scene and a song in the show on Tuesday night, and based on the audience response, that scene and that song went away on Wednesday night.
Yeah, it's not so funny when you're in the middle of it, okay?
And also, based on the audience response on Tuesday night, there was a new scene written by these guys.
Yesterday morning.
And it was in the show last night. Are you changing? And those were both good improvements. Those are both, I thought, very positive. Now, will the show be different tonight than it was last night?
We're looking at one minor shift, but it's not a huge surgery. It's just
In the car on the
right.
way here.
For today, at least.
In the car on the way here.
And that's, yeah. Now, Richard, let's talk to you for a second. You're playing Long John Silver. Carla alluded to the iconic nature of that character. You have your own fast food chain. You know, nobody goes to the Willie Loman Steakhouse, but, you know, Long John Silver's got his fast food chain. How do you tackle a role like Long John Silver, particularly in a brand new musical? What's your process, and what's it like to engage in this role?
Well, I mean, with any role that I've ever been a part of, you start with a script, regardless of what the background is. I mean, there's extensive information that I had at my fingertips with the book and all, but you can't really start there. You have to start with what was handed to you after you've auditioned for the show, and that's it. That's your template. You have to start from there. What information is in that is the Bible. It's the only factual stuff, and then you can take interpretations from that. And even Stevenson's book is an interpretation of this thing that was handed to you. So you have to start with that, and then of course you go back to the book and you start realizing the connections that are drawn, and especially with this wonderful script, the duality of Silver. You know, there's this idea of Silver as being this awful person, and at the same time, when you get it deeper into the book, you realize that it's coming from a place that's grounded and is justifiable. You can never approach a character from the point of view that this is an evil character. You have to approach the character from the point of view that these are the reasons why he or she makes these decisions. And through the course of reading the script and getting to know Silver from the book and all, come to realize the relationship that he has with the boy in the book is he parallels his own life to a certain degree at the beginning, and so he associates Jim as possibly as not necessarily his son, but as a kindred spirit, much different than the rest of the guys that are on the ship. You know, they're there for particular reasons. They're there to do a specific job. But this boy that's been brought aboard the ship, he has a direct parallels to his own life, and that kindred spirit comes up. And so as the show progresses, the way he, you know, approaches getting the treasure and doing all of these things is now butting up against the morality that this kid is bringing into his own life, and even the protection of this boy. You know, for the first time, he's actually protecting somebody, you know, above and beyond the treasure that is there and available to him. That's the wonderful thing that I found that they nailed in the script. And so...
Is there any difference as an actor in preparing for a role that's never been played by anybody else before, or playing a role that has a larger artistic footprint? Do you approach it as an actor any differently?
I think, again, it's, you know, from playing Iago and Othello to this role to plays that I've done or musicals that I've done that are original, and I'm the original player of that, it all starts with a script. You have to start with a script. Those are the facts that you have to deal with and make the connections to. Mm-hmm. So I think basically the answer to that question is no, there is no difference. You have to start off with what is actually mm-hmm. there. And then as you move further and further out from that, in a new situation, you have to, you know, divine from other sources. Like in this case, I went directly back to the source material and never watched any of the movies or any of that stuff.
Right,
because you just, this is a very different take on it. But, you know, you approach a play like, yeah, like I said, Iago and Othello, which has been played hundreds, thousands of times. Still, you have to start with what's actually mm-hmm. written.
Right.
And then you can start gleaning information about the reviews, the way other people have played it. So again, you have to start with that and then move out from there.
Okay. Logan, let's talk to you a little bit. How old are you?
I'm 14.
And you're from Pittsburgh?
Yes.
And this is not your first musical.
No.
Tell us a little about some of the things you've done. You're a member of Actors Equity Association?
Yes. I did Addams Family. I was the understudy of Pugsley. I jumped in halfway through the production.
And you're talking about the production on Broadway?
Yes. Addams Family on Broadway, excuse me, yes.
And so you understudied that, and you said you jumped in halfway there?
I jumped away pretty much halfway through the run, so I did not originate the understudy. The Matthew Gumley, who was Jim Hawkins in all of the readings, a really good friend of mine, I took over for him when he went on to do other things.
He got older.
Yes, that's pretty much it too.
Yeah. He went on to do older things. Yeah. So you spent time in New York when you were with Addams Family. Now you're here in Arkansas. How do you get an education?
Well, I go to performing arts school, so we pretty much have, it's called Lincoln Park Performing Arts Charter School, and so that's it's in Midland, Pennsylvania. Not that any of you really care, but so I go to performing arts school, and the thing that's different about this school is we have college-long classes, and the thing is, we need to make time for the arts classes, as in like singing classes or dance classes, such like that. So in my first semester, I only had 2 classes, which were 90 minutes each one of them, which was Spanish and civics. And now we're in the second part of it. I take biology online on the computer, and I take math online on the computer, and I'm in an English class. So pretty much I can take my math and my bio online, and my English teacher just sends me all the things I have to do for the class.
And to be a professional actor at your age requires a sacrifice on the part of your family. Your mom has been here and staying with you the whole time?
It's me and my mom. She did that for Addams Family too. And my dad, my brother, and my 2 younger sisters are up in Pennsylvania. And my dad's, he's fantastic. He's holding down the fort up there.
Are they going to get to come see the show?
Just my dad. Okay. Yeah.
So let's talk about Jim Hawkins. Did you know the story of Treasure Island before you auditioned for the play?
Nope, never heard of it. And
so about that education. No. You didn't know the story at all.
No.
So, not knowing the story at all, what was your take on Jim Hawkins? What was your approach to the character? What was it that you felt like you needed to work on, or what was engaging to you?
Well, just because I had it in a short amount of time and I did not have enough time to read the book, and I'm kind of glad I did not read the book so I could build the character how I want to build Jim Hawkins. The only thing I really did was watch the movie to see what Treasure Island is about. Of course, it's about an island and a treasure. And so I watched the movie, just get a take on what the characters inside of it and kind of just the storyline. And so once I found out I got it, just like Richard said, you read the script, and I read the script, and I started to layer the character as to see, I really paid attention to the choices he made and the things he does in the show.
Now I'm going to bring up something that we haven't been talking about, and that's your particular situation here when you arrived for auditions on the first day, and why you're wearing a long sleeve shirt.
Well, I broke my arm.
Yeah. And this young man, you broke your arm the day before you came here, right?
Yeah.
Now this is the kind of behind the scenes stuff that we don't talk about, but because you guys are here today, I wanted to give you a little insight into what this young man has been up against. This is a play that's not just about sitting around and talking. This is a play and a character that gets thrown all over the stage. And that was a bigger cast until 2 days ago, right?
Yes, I got down to the shorter cast. It used to be all the way up here, so my arm was like this, and I could only move my arm like this.
So on midnight, the night before the cast was scheduled to arrive, I get a call from our company manager who says, well, you're not going to believe this one. And I said, what's that? He goes, well, our Jim Hawkins broke his arm. But you know, I mean, and of course we were concerned for his well-being, for the well-being of the show. There were several sort of phone calls that occurred that night, and it has worked out so well. Costumes, of course, had to step in and design around that. Staging, and our fight choreographer had to step in, and that's the kind of thing you do. There's always something unexpected. This was unexpected, but has worked out so very well. You know, young men back in the day of Treasure Island also broke their arms, and so it has worked out exceptionally well. And our team, it's not like we're making a big deal about that, but in all the photo shoots and everything, you know, we've had to kind of make sure that it wasn't that prominent and design accordingly. Jim, what's been the hard, Jim? Logan, what's been the hardest part of this process for you?
I would say the hardest part is being 14 and being away from your family, not having to, like, I see them every day of my life, and being away from them I think that's the hardest part. I love my family a lot.
Yeah, now we're all sad.
Well, sorry.
No, it's all good. Let me come back to Brett here. Okay, let's talk about the process, the creative process now. Why is this play premiering at Arkansas Rep? How does a play go from your all's kitchen to have a life in the American theater? What's that process, and where is Arkansas Rep in that process in terms of your own thoughts, ambitions, dreams for the evolution of Treasure Island? Why are we doing the premiere here?
In 2008, I came to see the Rep's production of Les Mis, and actually I saw it here, and then I saw it again in Phoenix when it moved there, right? And at the opening night party, Bob and I actually met for the first time, I think then, and I strategically mentioned that I had a new musical in development, and we began a conversation that night that lasted, well, 4 years, until Arkansas Rep came forward to agree to produce the world premiere. For us, and for any new musical, this process is not for the faint of heart, and it's something that I liken it to having a child, where you're going to dedicate yourself to the upbringing of this child for however long it takes for this child to succeed. However, we can walk away from this child whenever we want to, but that has not been the case. We committed to a very clear understanding that this process would be certainly up to a decade, is what it would take to grow this, plant the seed, water it, get it to a point of something coming through the earth, and then continuing to nurture that to the point where it was a full-fledged, realized product. It is our hope, of course, that as the premiere happens here in Arkansas, that we have that we make it a nationally recognized event, certainly for the theater industry. The way that new musicals evolve is that they tend to begin in small dark corners with a collaborative team without a dollar, and if they have a good idea and they stay to it, it will get discovered by some degree of producer or production along the way, and then that begins the process of growth. And from there, more people are attracted to it, and you get a little bit of money to do the demo, you get a little bit of money to put a workshop on, you get a little money to do this, and you're sort of like Oliver's kids running around saying, "Can I have more, please?" Until someone steps up and says, "I believe in the product, and let's figure out what we can do with this," which is what Bob so graciously and the rep so graciously did for us. Is I think that I like to say you saw incredible potential. And they were willing to come to the table and help us develop it, which is what they've done. So we have done an incredible amount of development here in Arkansas. We are a different product than when we got off the plane 4 weeks ago. We have worked day and night to figure ourselves out even more. And it's our goal right now that we present this, we put this out there, we bring people here to see it, and it continues to grow. We want to become the one and only, the iconic musical version that will move from the regions into Broadway, into London, and into global exposure. I think that we have a product which is unique in that Treasure Island has been translated into almost every single language on the planet. Ka-ching, ka-ching. So that is a big part of what you look at business-wise when you decide on something. How commercial is it? Where can it play? What is the target audience? What is the projected interest? What can it do once it has its premiere? Who's going to be interested in it? And how long will it have relevance?
You know, I get, on average, I get about 4, excuse me, I get about 4 new scripts a week sent to me through mail or through email. And we don't have anybody on our staff to read new plays. We have had in the past, but in the last few years we haven't had that staff position. And so a lot of these plays don't get read. They come to us unsolicited. Excuse me. So 200 plays, 200 scripts a year come our way. This is the first new play we've produced since a play called The Left Hand Singing. I'm going to cough now. Why don't you talk?
Okay, so... Yeah.
I want to say that a couple of years ago I was here as the musical director for Hairspray, and I worked with some of the most talented, flexible, kind human beings as musicians. I do recall the company manager saying we had this project, and knowing Brett had spoken with Bob, and company manager said, I said, I really would love to do it here. I love this space. I like the people here. And he said, go into the office. And when I went into the office to say, we have a Treasure Island, whatever, Bob said, I already know. You know, he says, I already know. I've spoken with Brett quite a bit. But I do want to say, and one reason I want to say this is I see in the audience my French horn player. So Brent, could you just stand? This is one of our fine musicians from Little Rock. And these people are teachers all day, whatever. They've come in at night and they've stayed late. They've had to go to work the next day. This is a secondary job for them. And every time we make a change, they have to. They come in, last night was 5:30, they left at 10:30. We changed at 5:30. Got news, Brent, we're changing again tonight. But they will come in tonight and do that. So I just want to say the people here, the place, the facility, everyone is so gracious. And having lived it a couple of years ago, I thought, with these little detours we're going to have to take, this would be a great place to do it. And these are the people I would want on my ship musically. So I thank Little Rock for that.
Let's open up to questions. What would you guys like to know?
Enjoyed by children? Is this a play that will be equally enjoyed by children?
We have, as Bob said earlier, I think what we have come to the agreement is we give ourselves a PG rating. It is absolutely a story that kids will find compelling, the visual production as well as the thematic production, But we also are not shying away from some of the real elements of what this boy goes through in terms of the violence and in terms of some of the human interactions there. I don't know that it's entirely appropriate for really tiny kids, you know, but last night we had a lot of kids in the audience and not a single one of them left. And I think even in our initial workshop, we had kids that we felt might be way too young, like 6, 5, 4-year-olds. And what we found was silence in the theater. And I think we underestimated our range. Honest to goodness, I don't know that we know our exact audience yet. That's something we're learning, and we will continue to learn as the project evolves. One of the things that I think we are very dedicated to is it not be a kiddie show. And that was the first thing Bob and I talked about, was this is not a children's theater production. And when I say that, it's not so much to make it exclusive, it's more to say that we are focusing on the human elements and what this boy truly goes through. I think that we've said, what do we say, third grade? Third grade around there and up? But a really mature second grader might have a great time. You know?
And that's a good point, because we're not exactly sure. And that's what's been wonderful about these preview audiences, is how much we're learning. We learn as much by watching the audience. Now, not a single child, no parents took their kids out last night. We had 6-year-olds there last night. That's telling us we're learning from that. Yes, sir.
So, in the previews, are you all sitting there up on the top watching the audience's reaction during the play? Is that how you figure this out?
We certainly listen well. I think the actors get a chance to feel audience response and audience energy. We are listening for where the laughs are. We're listening for where the applause is or isn't.
Are you in the audience?
We are. We're in the audience. Yeah, we are stealth, and we're really good at blending in and listening to what you people say about us. But yeah, this is our time. This is the most critical time for the development of a new musical, is to put it in front of people and watch what happens. Because tomorrow night, when it is press night, to a certain degree, we have to stand back from it. Testing, testing, testing.
Now, I'll follow up on that question, too. As a producer, I'm spending most of my time watching the audience. And last night, we put out comment cards for the audience to give us their feedback. And we got lots of people filled out the comment cards. And they gave us their feedback. They were very candid. There were things that they didn't like as well as things they loved. Generally, they loved the show and were focused on the music and the singing and the acting. But they told us, well, this could be better or that could be better. And so those comments are taken to heart and are influencing how the show evolves. So our audience is here in Little Rock, and that's the thing, too. When you're selecting a venue for a world premiere, it's not just about the great space, and it's not just about having the right team and having the money to put into creating a new musical, because a show like this costs between $250,000 and $350,000 to produce. It's also about having a great audience, an audience that cares, an audience that's thoughtful, an audience that has experience with these kind of shows, because I think that Little Rock is a very prototypical audience. I think that our audience is a good, smart sample of what a show needs to learn. And so that's another reason that if you saw the announcement of the Rep's new season, our 13-14 season, you'll know there's 2 world premiere musicals in that season. And it's because producers are now increasingly seeking us out for those very reasons. Sir.
Yeah, A, where do you go from here with the show? And B, do you take the same characters with you?
Do you mean the same actors? Because hopefully they'll take the same characters.
Can I just answer? I just want to say one thing about the question before. I am not in the house. I am with the orchestra in another space and hearing it. And I think probably the keenest situation that I have is because I can't see it and be there with them, the reactions I am hearing to, like if Silver says something that's snide, you hear the adult reaction to, whoa, you know, a comment that he will say, or the reaction to the songs, the amount of applause, or the ooh and ah when the mom and the boy react, or the laughter and the jokes. It's something that I feel but don't get to see as they do. And it also tells you what does work and not work. And the other night when a number was cut, you know, Brett comes down the sidewalk, you're going to hate me, but we're going to have to cut this. You know what? It was perfect. I didn't feel it when I could just feel the energy from where I was that it wasn't good. So it is very interesting when you ask, where do you hear or see the show from? And I am one person not in the house of all of them and still get those reactions. So.
I'm going to let them answer the gentleman's question, then I'll come back to Kitty.
To answer your question about the gentleman's question in the back, putting together a cast for a new musical, world premiere, and something in development is both an artistic and a business venture, and one that we looked at very seriously when we sat down to begin casting. Because we had had years of readings, 2 years of readings, and certainly a good amount of industry exposure, we had a lot of people looking at us, and our show is 11 males and 1 female, very atypical for commercial musical theater today. And certainly atypical for the industry itself, where you have an abundance of female actresses and not as wide a pool for men. But when we sat down to look at this, we were very clear in our intent that we wanted to assemble our A-cast, and we wanted for that group of people to become family. And we spent a long time doing that, and when we found the right group of people, the answer is yes, we will move forward with them. We want Logan, and we're going to write into all of his contracts that he remains 14. So that's pretty much understood. And where it goes from here is what we are in the process of determining. Right now, we are relatively helpless, truth be told. We have to sit and wait and see what people think of us. And every day, there's a new treasure island that someone is thinking about and creating. You know what, we didn't pick a property that no one knows, we picked a well-known title. It's a little bit of a race to the finish, but at the same time, I think if we have delivered the goods, the reward will come. And if it doesn't, we also, the three of us, have looked at one another and said this may be the end of our road. And we're completely fine with that. I believe when the lights go out and curtain goes up, we believe that we have done the most we could do for that day, for this moment. And even though there's still a little bit of work to do, I think we're very content with our show. We believe in it, we're confident about it. Unless you have a lot of money. See me afterwards.
You know, and I just, living with the production, seeing it in rehearsal, and being something of an outsider to the creative process, see, now the actors, these actors, Logan and Richard and the cast, now embody the roles for me, because I've seen them create these roles, and so I can't imagine other actors doing this musical. But of course, if it were to have a life after the rep, dozens and dozens of other actors will perform in this. But I think that this is a stellar cast they've assembled. Their vocal work is really pretty phenomenal. Now I'll go to your question.
I was just interested in the musical aspect of it, and I wondered if one of your goals is that when people leave the theater, there's a tune in their head?
I hope there's more than one. Seriously, there are many times in rehearsal and in the many places that we've done backers auditions, whatever, so many times people go, I can't get that melody out of my head. The actors go, that was in my head all night. I've even had people come into the theater and say, that's a song that could come out of the show, that could be sung alone. So there are...
One of your goals.
It isn't necessarily my goal. I would like that to happen. My goal was to make what I created be a part of this show and work, because if it's something that only stood out from that, aside from the show, it wouldn't be a part of it. It would be like, this doesn't make sense in here. Yes, I would like many of the songs to, there aren't a ton of them, but I think there are about 3 or 4 that could stand alone outside of this show. And I think that's the goal of any show, that, oh, I remember that from Beauty and the Beast, or I remember that from, yes, I would like it to be, I remember that from Treasure Island.
I've had a conversation with our casting associate at the theater. We've watched the play, and there's a couple of songs where we've said that could be an audition song. And one of the interesting things about Corinne's music is that it's interwoven in the story. So some of the songs are woven and integrated into the dialogue and into the physical action of the play. So in other words, there are, as standalone songs, sometimes they'd be hard to extrapolate because they're so interwoven and they continue, and there's a piece of the song and then there's a scene and then there's another piece of the song. And then there are some that stand alone. There is a song that in sort of traditional musical theater parlance you'd call the 11 o'clock number. And that's a phrase that goes back, generations. When sort of the old-fashioned musical was being written, they'd always say you have to have an 11 o'clock number. And the 11 o'clock number, and you guys who know more about this than me can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's the song that comes sort of towards the end of the show, that is a hook song that's got a catchy melody in it. And our show even has what I would call I think it's an 11 o'clock number. Pick up on that if you want to a little bit.
I was just going to say an 11 o'clock number is Everything's Coming Up Roses that Mama Rose sings. That's the 11 o'clock number. You know, Soliloquy and Carousel is the 11 o'clock number. Don't Cry for Me? It's like the 9:30 number, but it's really well known.
Curtain times used to be later. You know, back in the 1920s, 1930s, curtain times were 8:30.
Yeah, but doesn't that 9:30 song reappear again?
Well, I think what you have there is, and that's an interesting conversation that extends from Corinne's, you know, will you have a hit extrapolate from this? Producers who will look to Treasure Island will look specifically, what are the songs that we'll take away? What are the songs I can sell? What are the songs that will work on the radio? What's the TV 30-second? They will look at that and they will judge whether the marketability can ride on those pieces you can take out. Lloyd Webber, who wrote Evita, is well known for having standalone after standalone after standalone. You know, it's his book and the story that ties those together, but you can take all of his songs out and their memory, you know what I mean? They're all standalone. So his songs tend to serve a little bit of a different purpose. As Bob said, ours are very plot and character and story driven. His are a little bit more, they happen after the fact or they comment on the fact.
In addition to that, because of the character, there are so few people in the show, a mother, a boy, and then 10 gentlemen. The mother has a song early in the show, so it's not 11, it's like the 7:30, 8 o'clock number. The mother has a song that I do believe can stand alone for female singers, and some women have asked in the past, can we use that for an audition? I'm fine. The young boy that isn't Dick, the boy that his name is Dick, and he is not the good boy, he has quite an 11 o'clock number, and the last 2 nights, in hearing this from where I am, there's a number after the one that we said was Israel Hands. It's now a duet between Silver and Jim. That is like another number that is like another 11 o'clock number. It's hard to say because of different characters having more. And then there are 2 numbers the whole cast has, like the prologue. Then I used the same music in The Chase and The Island. And we used it on TV yesterday when we were in Good Morning Arkansas. So for specific characters, I think there are a variety of numbers like that. So you have to come see and pick your 11 o'clock number.
What else? Catherine. She's bringing you a mic right there.
Could you tell us about the set?
The set, I'll start, and then I'm going to pass it over to our team here. The set design is by a designer named Stanley Myers. This is Stan's first design for Arkansas Rep. If you have gone to New York and if you have seen Disney's Beauty and the Beast on Broadway, you have seen Stan's work since that's his set design. But let's talk about how Brett, let me ask you to talk about how the set design, first of all, how did you engage Stan in the process? When did he come into the conversation? And with a play that's so epic and so sprawling, and are we going to, when they come to see it, will they see an inn and then a boat and then an island and we have all kinds of set changes? How did we get that on our stage?
For 7 years, we have talked, the 3 of us have spoken very practically about what it means, design-wise, to realize our show. We could make one of 2 choices, and we could have a spectacle that would cost $15 million on Broadway, and we could certainly create every single location and make it epic, or we could infer those locations and keep our story succinct and minimalistic and focused on the stakes of the play, and that was always where we lived. It was never a contest. In trying to realize what we deem as 4 primary locations, we have the inn where we first find Jim, we have the dock, we have the ship, and we have the island. Those are the 4 primary locations. We wanted a world that was evocative but never specific, completely non-literal. And in our initial conversations when we started working with Stan, we just talked very abstract. We just literally talked for, what must have been days and weeks and months really, about how to realize this without ever having to realize it. And I think that the beauty is the imagination of the viewer is far stronger than a literal representation of a ship and an island. To me, there's nothing more of a deflating moment than to open Act 2 with a bunch of palm trees. I mean, it's just not where our head ever was. We were never there. So when we began to sort of just talk to Stan and let him absorb all of the creative concepts over the years, it was new for all of us because we never had to realize our show before. We never needed to do it. We were at music stands, we were around the table. When it came time to actually say, well, how would this play out? Those conversations with Stan helped us to physically realize our show. And I must say that Stan is, Stan's incredible. And Stan, not only as a designer, but as a human being and now a family member to us. But what Stan did was take a lot of dialogue and a lot of information and synthesize it down into a unit. In our language, a unit world is one that never changes. A unit world that I think beautifully captures every single intended location as well as the epic concept of the piece.
Keeping along the same lines in this design world, Rafael Castanera designed the costumes. And to just piggyback on what Brett was saying, the costumes are not designed to be literal realizations of 18th century pirates. They are thematic realizations. And I want to come down, Richard, to you. One of the big sort of iconic ideas about Long John Silver is that he has a peg leg. As an actor, tell us about that process. Give us a little insider information about, you've got two legs.
Right.
How did that work, and what's that process like?
The day that my agent called me and said that you got the role, the very next question out of my mouth was, how are they going to deal with the peg leg? Because it's just, it's a process, it's an assembly, it's a thing that you're going to have to wear for 2 hours, and then during rehearsal process you're going to have to wear it all day, and you've just got to get used to it without hurting yourself. And after talking to Raphael, the costume designer, at length, he assured me that the security of it would be done. And a wonderful man, Mike at New Hope, I don't know his last name, the local prosthetics manufacturer here in Little Rock. I got off the airplane that Friday coming in from New York City, went directly from the airport to his facility, and he and his crew, with Raphael in attendance and them talking, assembled a mold of this knee bent at the angle that I could live with for a certain amount of time. And within 4 days, Mike had this thing done, and it's a godsend. It just works beautifully. I've had no problems with it. Raphael and he were talking right there at that initial opening of what it is that Raphael was going for, which was the same thing that he was doing with the overall concept of the design of the costumes, and that is you want to see the mechanics of it. It's like an open-faced wristwatch. You want to see the gears. In other words, it's very exposed. There's lots of exposed metal to it and shock absorbers and that kind of thing. At one point, they were actually talking about, putting an articulated metal foot on the bottom of it, and I think he bandied about the idea of putting a hoof on the bottom of it, cloven hoof. I mean, wow. Okay, but that was the main thing that I wanted, was to make sure that it was safe, because you're putting all of your weight, especially when you're going down a set of steps, and when you come see the show, you'll know what I'm talking about. But you put all of your weight down on that one bent knee, and I kept thinking, oh my God, it's going to be awful. And Mike did a great job with it, because that's what he does for a living. These men and women that come in that have to have a prosthesis, and they're putting all of their driving weight, including runners and that sort of thing, on this prosthetic, and it was a beautiful process. Did a great job with it.
Now, that's an example of how the local business community helps the rep in unexpected ways. Who would have ever thought that we would need the services of a prosthetic company?
He stepped right up and was just...
Yeah, and they donated the entire process to the rep. So it was... We can do one more question. Yes, Jerry.
Well, I consider myself an expert on Broadway shows since I watched Smash. But,
It's just like
so I really
that.
know how it all works, but I'd really like to know a little bit about Brett and you know, the creators, the actors, of course, I know participate in a lot of things, but what is y'all's background and what do you do when you're not doing this particular project, I mean?
Well, I started in the business as a dancer and completely lost interest in it and began to sit while I was a performer for a very brief time. I began to sit on the side. I always was fascinated by what was happening around me. I was never interested in what I was doing. And I quickly became an assistant and associate and a choreographer and then a director. I spent a decade on the road putting up various shows, and I sort of lost interest in that. I was very driven to new musicals, and in 2000 I made a decision that I would only focus on the development of new works, even though that might mean the loss of work. That's really what I have done, and that's what I continue to do now. Primarily, I am the general manager and associate artistic director of another theater, which is waiting for me to get back right now, but that's what I do aside from this, but we certainly dedicate ourselves to the development of these projects.
I am a musical director. I was the orchestrator arranger for an off-Broadway show called Menopause the Musical for 4.5 years. Played the pit of Boy from Oz, chorus line, the first one. Yes. Stopped to Raise a Family.
Wow.
Was Liza Minnelli's stand-in?
I was not going to say that yet. I used to be her look-alike when she was so popular, and not now. But anyhow, I'm also a musical director at the theater that Brett is now the general manager of, and we'll be going back for summer stock. My next venture really is, this part of my life is to create and to write more than musically direct. I do have a children's musical called The Littlest Witch in license out in LA, and I'm looking to create more, and love this team, and I'm sure I'll be doing stuff with other teams, but I like the creative process, and this has been the one that really has sent me over to say, on to the next.
And of the whole team, Corinne is the only one who had worked here before because she was our musical director for Hairspray. Carla.
Well, I'm dedicating my time now to the creative process and starting and working on new things. One of the reasons maybe Brett and I communicate and understand each other is that I started as a dancer also, but in more traditional modern dance world with the Jose Limon and Martha Graham companies, and studied, had the great joy of studying with some outstanding people. But then I worked as a choreographer and then as a director, and now I'm fully interested in this new process. So it's a whole new time of my life. So I'm very excited about it.
Treasure Island opens tomorrow night at the Rep. It's with us for a month. I hope that you'll come and see it. I hope you'll bring your families and friends down to come and see it. We welcome your feedback in the process as well. I'm so glad you joined us today, and I want to thank the Clinton School for inviting us. It's one of our best, most favorite sponsorships and partnerships, and we greatly appreciate the opportunity to be here and talk about our work. We greatly appreciate you for supporting our work and for being here today. Thank you very much.